We always start from the point of what can we do that hasn't been done in documentary films. The world is changing. The technology is changing. How do we push the medium to the place that the audience has never been yet? And 2000 meters is the attempt to do it.
The war in Ukraine may no longer dominate the headlines, but the brutal fight for freedom continues. And brave filmmakers are risking everything to tell the world what's really happening on the front lines. Oscar-winning Ukrainian filmmaker Mstislav Chernov, who won Best Documentary Feature for his 2023 Academy Award-winning film 20 Days in Mariupol, returns with his powerful new documentary 2000 Meters to Andriivka. This gripping film captures the intense 2023 battle to drive Russian forces out of the small village of Andriivka, Ukraine. Using raw body cam footage, immersive drone shots, and frontline cinematography, Chernov delivers an unflinching look at the courage, sacrifice, and reality of Ukraine's ongoing fight for survival. Masterful editing transforms chaotic combat into a clear, deeply human story that demands to be seen and felt. As difficult as it can be to watch at times, 2000 Meters to Andriivka reminds us why frontline documentaries are more vital now than ever, making us wiser and more inspired from the experience. Watch our conversation with Oscar-winning director Mstislav Chernov as he shares what it takes to film a war zone and why the world must keep watching Ukraine on Inside the Arthouse, starting now.
Hi, my name is Greg Lumley.
And I'm Raphael Spark.
Welcome to today's episode of Inside the Arthouse. Today we're joined by Mstislav Chernov. He's the Academy Award-winning director of 20 Days in Mariupol, and his new film coming out is 2000 Meters to Andriivka. Thank you for joining us, Mstislav.
Thank you for inviting me. Hello.
The footage in this film, in both films, but certainly in this film, is just astounding. It's just amazing what you've captured here. Follows, I guess, in a tradition, dating back to the Vietnam War of real raw footage coming into our homes. And I'm struck, with the fact that people can find out so much about what's going on, and with the fact that the events that are detailed in the film are somewhat not news, because it's detailing something that happened in 2023. Here we are in 2025. What is the benefit as a filmmaker of having some time and perspective on the events to put the footage together in a long-form documentary? And what is the benefit for us as an audience in being able to understand the story with some background, I guess?
It's a great question, because that was always something I was going through while I was a journalist, an investigative journalist, a news journalist, and that's my background. That's where I'm coming from into filmmaking. So I think that's one of the reasons why I wanted to move from journalism to filmmaking, because films give you much deeper understanding of the topic you're talking about, the much closer look at the motivation, at the feelings, at the meanings of people who you're spending time with and whose stories you are telling. And also, I guess that's a thing with the modern journalism, its reputation, its impact is undermined by a lot of political statements that are happening.
Yes.
I'm going to be diplomatic here.
Yes. So. We're all going to tap dance, yes, as best as we can. Yes.
That's journalist talking in me again.
Yeah.
I will be very politically diplomatic always. And that's helpful when you are talking about topics like human rights, when you're talking about very delicate themes, as always, when you are looking at the war. The reputation of journalism was undermined by as much as some of the democratic countries and the democratic governments, as well as totalitarian and authoritarian regimes all across the world. Mm-hmm. And so I am frustratingly find myself at a place where I just don't see that the journalism I did makes the impact that I was expecting. Mm-hmm. And that's where filmmaking comes into place. That everything I know about Vietnam War, everything I know about Second World War, everything I know about a lot of important issues and events in the world is coming from literature and cinema. Mm-hmm. And so I wanted to be able to talk with that medium. And for 20 Days is a good example of the film that in the beginning was approached as shooting news, but then sort of build itself up into being a film.
Oh, that's interesting.
And for 2,000 meters to Andriivka, on the contrary, it was conceived as a film from the very beginning. I was already looking at it from the very beginning, from the perspective of how to make a film out of this story.
I know you said you came to documentary filmmaking because you were feeling inherently frustrated by what you could or couldn't do through journalism because of the outlets and the perception of it being, somehow slanted one way or the other. I started as a documentary filmmaker with not having gone through film school and sort of learned it on the go. I guess you have won the Pulitzer and the Academy Award and the BAFTA and about 20 other awards. But I guess, how did you move into documentary filmmaking? What was that? Was it sort of on the road as you went? Was it taking your photographic skills and applying them to the moment? Or
I think it feels like learning additional language. So as you move forward as a storyteller, I actually all started with the literature. I was a novelist, so I was writing both fiction and nonfiction, and then I moved into photography. Then I moved into being a journalist and a videographer, then DP, and then eventually I became a film director. You see, that journey is more like developing new skills, learning new language, because you are inevitably moving into space when you feel that the language you know is not enough to tell the story you want to tell. And that goes back again to journalism, the length of the time that the journalistic story can live in this madness that is the media space right now, and this chaos of news and stories. The survival rate of news stories is much lower. And if you want something to stay in history, if you want something to have a persistent impact, then you gotta go with a different language. You're gonna go with a film language, and that was another motivation, I guess. Does it answer your question?
Yeah, it does. I mean, it's great. It was a sort of an evolution, as you say.
It is an evolution, but again, some stories until now I can see that I can tell only with literature. While I'm shooting documentaries, I can see how I should keep writing the novels, but also I should keep writing nonfiction.
Yes, and it's the time you have with your audience. What someone is going to learn from the 5 minutes that they have on a podcast or I shouldn't downgrade podcasts, but
that's why the podcast is actually a more interesting and deeper form too.
Yeah.
Right, but a social media post or a quick hit or that 5 minutes on the evening news, as opposed to the 90 minutes more or less that they're going to give to you and the story that you're telling in a film. But in some cases, I need days of time with my audience to tell this story, and literature may be the only form, that it is appropriate.
Yeah, and then there is this some kind of a feeling of duty as well. Being a documentary filmmaker, I also feel very strongly, especially during this Russian invasion in Ukraine, I feel that I do have a certain civil duty, if I can say that, but not to defend a Ukrainian perspective, but just to make sure that things that can be later twisted, misunderstood, misinterpreted are recorded and stay there and survive there. I'll give an example. A week before the final Oscars ceremony, 2 years ago, we are already nominated. Russia rolls out a scripted film that is called 2022 Mariupol.
Oh, wow.
And if you are in Russia, if you Google 20 days in Mariupol, you get their scripted version. So what they did is as soon as they occupied the city, they've sent crews to film on the location, and they did quite high value production, a scripted film, mini-series. That's the reality. That's the reality that 120 million Russians are seeing about what happened in Mariupol. Wow. Imagine that 20 days in Mariupol doesn't exist. It just exists in the form of news and headlines put against high value production, a film that would be human brain doesn't really know the difference.
Of course.
Between fiction and non-fiction. We as humans just live in these constant stories that we're telling to each other, telling to ourselves. And I guess for that millions of neurons that are in just this box, in this dark box of our heads that are floating there and getting the signals from outside, it doesn't really matter if it's fiction or not. It's just when you're watching documentary and then you're realizing that you're watching documentary, it even hits you harder. But in general, for the most of the audience, the memory and the feeling will always be there. So their film, their fiction film, would have been the only version of the story
they would see, right?
That there is.
So it's the power of propaganda, absolutely.
I think documentary does make, when people realize that they are watching something real, not scripted, when you manage to engage them in the story, and then they realize that they're watching, but this is all real. It makes even more. That's 2,000 Meters to Andriivka. Frequently from the audiences, I get this reflection that first they thought they're watching like a computer game.
A video game. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Or Saving Private Ryan opening.
Right.
And then they tell me, but then I realized this is all real. And I'm like, okay, that's exactly what I wanted to do. I wanted to pull them in the story, and then the documentary side hits people even stronger.
There are war correspondents, and then you are literally in the field taking fire with these troops moving forward, and you are you conceived of this way to kind of really put the camera on their helmet or on their chest and move forward. What was the moment of the aha moment where you were able to sort of say, okay, we've got this town, we've got this journey, and we're going to shoot it this way, and let's put ourselves in it and see what happens. It's quite a big conceit to have, to kind of sort of put all that together.
Yeah, there is always a moment when you watch something or when you film something and then it clicks and you say, yes, there is a film here. Maybe I don't have it yet, but this is the film.
Right.
And to get to that point, you have to work a lot. It's rarely the beginning, right?
Of course.
And so I remember summer of 2023, I was campaigning with 20 Days in Mariupol. I was flying between LA, where we would have screenings.
So campaigning for the Oscar.
We call it that way. Campaigning.
Oh yeah, we call it Oscar campaigns. Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, it's a different kind of military campaign. Yes, right.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah. Or political campaign, I guess. But
right.
Just to be frank, the Oscars were never a target. The campaign. It's more of a, how do you make sure that more people see it? Because that's you realize it was very, very hard to bring people to cinemas.
Yes.
To step into the war zone and suffer. That was emotionally super hard. And I remember the PR team called me and said, Mrs. Flav, just to be aware, we are premiering at the same time with Oppenheimer and Barbie.
Oh my God.
That's what we're going to be.
You're up against the two biggest.
Just be prepared that people may not come. It was full. People just went to cinemas, to everything that was there. So it was really good moment. But I was there talking to people, trying to dress fine, trying to be positive, but at the same time, and going to all these events, pre-BAFTA, other awards that are happening over there, and then flying back to Poland, taking a car to Kyiv, or train, taking a car to Frontline, and just going in a trench. And there has been, that was the time of the summer counteroffensive campaign that so hyped and so important for Ukraine, and hyped in the news. So that felt like another decisive moment for Ukraine. I knew that I needed to find a story, but also I wanted to be there just to see it, just to be there. And I started to follow several different groups of soldiers. Of those three different storylines, one clicked, as you said. I remember the moment when we came into it was a small house, not very far from the front line. Several people were sitting there. Future protagonist, and whose name is Fedya, was sitting there too. And they were resting after the battle they just had. And they were also mourning the loss of their friend Gagarin that has died in that battle. So they were emotionally quite sensitive. And they showed us the footage that they had recorded with their body cams. And that was the first time they saw that footage.
Oh,
and
wow.
that footage is in the film.
Yes. Yeah. No.
It's the moment when Gagarin gets shot in the forest.
Right.
And despite of that dramatic moment, despite of the pain that they all feel about his death, they know they have to go forward. You can see that decision was like made. He's shot, he needs help, but also they need to push forward. And I could see them contemplating with those choices they had to make. And I watched that footage, and I watched them watching that footage for the first time. And I asked to show where it happened, and they showed me this map of that narrow strip of forest where that happened.
Yeah.
And I saw the village in the end of that forest. It wasn't liberated yet by that time, but that was their goal.
Yeah.
And I said, that's the film.
The 2000.
That's the story. There was such a clarity of where they need to go, of what they need to do. There was such a friendship between these people and such dedication to that goal. And then it just started unwinding. And that's what we joined them. That's where we agreed that if they ever get to that village, that's where we also will go with them. And so it went on, and it became very, very difficult. It has proven to be an incredibly difficult goal. It took them from the very beginning, is before even I joined, to the very end of the operation. That 2,000 meters took them 3 months. That's sort of the core of the film.
Right.
2,000 meters, 3 months, and that is what the film is about. The price of every single meter, foot, inch. And that was so symbolic about, like, it covered the entire front line. I could see the entire front line. I could see the story of this counteroffensive, and every single soldier was in that front line, in that trajectory that it was on the map. And then again, you take a lot of chances. You wait, you plant, you give them cameras, you follow up. And when the operation is over, then you still follow up with them. And I think the film has changed a lot while we were editing. It took a year to edit through everything, to go through 100 hours of GoPro footage, and much more of my own footage. And while we were doing that, a lot of those people who were sitting in that room, there were 5 people in that room, and unfortunately only the protagonist was still fighting, and one of them was heavily injured and the rest was dead.
Yeah.
So the film has changed over that year, over the course of that editing, and the mood of the film has changed. The theme of the film has changed.
Let's perhaps go to a clip so that you can see sort of what this feels like. Do you want to set up where we are in the film at this moment for this clip?
The structure of the film was built on the proximity to the final goal. It's a kind of a countdown to the final goal of the film, to the village of Andriivka, to possibly setting the flag in the village. I'm not going to spoil the film, but that's the goal.
Excellent.
Let's take a little look at 2,000 meters to Andriivka.
Я на зв'язку, блядь, все заебись.
Метров 50 где-то. Да?
Плюс зараз робить.
Плюс прийняв.
Друже, дайте вліво.
Плюс прийняв. Зараз дамо вліво 100 метрів.
In headquarters, Duda and other officers guided Fedya and his team through the battlefield.
Вліво 100 метрів, вліво 100 метрів. І вперед
150. 150-200. Плюс, Федя. Плюс, друже, прийняв. Будьте дуже уважні. Починається підерський сектор.
Своя!
There's so much. It's hard to stop.
It's hard to know where to stop. Yeah.
Actually, you were just about to, like, there was a good moment of a drone hit.
It certainly gives the audience a perspective of the film and how intense and
How immediate and how sort of literally firsthand in the trenches it is. Yeah.
There are a few important things about this scene, and sort of from a dramatic arc perspective of the film, you always have to make sure that these scenes are going to result in later on in much more intimate moments of one single camera, a simple human conversation. When you get to know people who you later see in the battle.
Right.
There's this
there's
emotional...
yes, the film, this is not the entire film.
Exactly, because no one can keep up with the tempo, although the soldiers probably have to. The film all is built in the way that you get a very intense, loud, multi-camera perspective on the battlefield. And then you go into a very close, intimate moment with soldiers. You just talk to them
just
and
hanging out.
Tell you
right.
simple things about their lives. And then you go back to this intensive. But for this specific battle, that's a pinnacle of the language we were using for the film. And one of the hardest parts of editing this film was to find a way to merge a very different mediums, very different cameras, in a way that would feel natural and it would feel like you are progressing.
So everyone has a camera on them, right? Every one of... and then you have a drone.
For example,
as well.
this one, you would see at least 2 cameras in the battlefield, one of them being 360 degrees, so you can reframe the perspective later. And again, they wear it anyway because the battle analysis, because of their own media publications, they like to film. So all I can do as a director just to add more cameras. That's one. And 2, so there are 2 cameras in the battlefield. 2 cameras are working. It's just me and an additional cinematographer who is with me. 2 cameras are working in headquarters. There are 2 drones that are filming, and there is 1 extra camera later in where they take the injured to. So in total, you'll have to work with 7 different perspectives, 7 different cameras.
Wow.
And 1 suicide drone footage as well.
Right.
And you have to build the progression of the scene with those perspectives that are shooting everything that is happening simultaneously.
Right.
You don't even have that sometimes in scripted films.
No.
7 cameras working simultaneously.
No, you don't.
Right?
No, you don't.
Being able to work in a documentary with the battlefield scene, it's a battlefield scene that is covered by 7 cameras, is an incredible possibility, is an incredible chance to see war as never before. The war itself is very similar, like experience of a soldier in a war zone is very similar to what it was 100 years ago during the First World War, the Second World War. But the way we can experience as an audience is so much more. And I think I wanted to really get deep in that possibility, and that chance to bring the audience right in the trench to experience it together with the soldiers.
Obviously, there was great success at the end of 2022. And as we're going into 2023 and this, the big counterattack and the effort to push the Russian lines back is sort of in your head as this battle is happening, as you're there. And yet as you step back to edit the footage in later 2023 and later in 2024, and you begin to understand that it was not that simple, that what happened at the end of 2022 was an outlier, perhaps. How does that sort of enter into the story that you're trying to tell?
That makes this story even more relevant. Mm-hmm. You write while you edit. That's the thing about documentaries. There isn't a script that you're shooting to.
Right.
The writing of documentary is happening while you're editing.
Right.
Therefore, thoughts and themes are forming according to what's happening even after you shot your main footage, after the shoot is over. As I said, a lot of these soldiers were unfortunately dying after the film, the main filming was over, and so all we could do is just to go to their funerals that was devastating on its own. But that also influenced the theme of the film and its sexuality. In the beginning, this film was about this victory that happens.
Yes.
A small victory that nevertheless is very symbolic, because these people are not fighting for land, they're not fighting for cities, they're fighting for symbols. The nation needs hope, and hope is built on symbols, on ideas, and that's what they're fighting for. And the film is opening with a Hemingway's quote, "By the end, only the names matter." And that's exactly what it is. They're fighting for the name of Andriivka and losing a lot for that symbol. The film was about that, but then a year later, it also became a film about the memory of all these people who are fighting for a symbol. And that's a long-lasting theme. That's not anymore news, right? The memory is something very universal. And a theme of memory in a war is, for me, as human that has been in a war for past decade, is something that has always been the most important. The war wipes out everything. Everything. Nothing survives it. And yet the only thing that stays is the memory. The question is, how do you keep it? That became a theme of the film as we were editing. Somewhere in the middle of the film, you have this already comments of foreign media and experts that are saying, if this counteroffensive will fail, that will probably mean Ukraine will not be able to get to its original borders and will have to make some land concessions.
Right. It's that whole thing of how do you actually communicate that you're winning enough to be able to continue to get the support that you need to keep going.
Exactly. So what we're seeing right now is a absolutely direct consequence of what Fedya was doing when he was carrying the flag to Andriivka. Think about it as everyone brings up always when they talk about the battles in the cinema, they always bring this Battle of Helm's Deep, right? In Lord of the Rings.
Yes.
And
Two Towers.
The strength of that battle is that every protagonist, however small he seems in the big scope of the story, influences the outcome of that battle, whether the outcome is good or sad. And here I feel the same. As time has passed, I felt that one single small deed, a man walking with a flag, a group of people fighting for a forest, all that has influenced the larger picture that we are seeing right now and had direct consequences on where we are historically and politically now.
Yeah, I mean, Mariupol and this film obviously both serve, in addition to being great films and great filmmaking, they serve to also keep it alive in everyone's imagination. They obviously after 3 years of this and lots of news, people get dulled and or sort of desensitized. So both of these films have been able to sort of bring it back and create a sense of immediacy. It's still going on, obviously, every single day, and despite the fact that whether we hear about it or not, these films are carrying their own flag in a way that is very important. What kind of response are you having from this film on the sort of the festival run, I guess, and then also that is in terms of how's it playing outside of Ukraine? And then I know you said that you are currently in an undisclosed location in Germany for your own safety, but that you're going back to Ukraine to screen it for the families, some of the families, and in the country. Is that a premiere there, I guess?
It is a Ukrainian premiere. So we had a festival run that was amazing, and the reception was so great and responsive. I'll go to that in a minute. But yeah, finally we're bringing the film home to Doku Days Festival, and those who survived, those soldiers who survived, those soldiers who were filming the battlefields scenes from their GoPros, their families and friends, they're all coming to the premiere to see it for the first time. And more importantly, families of those soldiers who have died. And for some of them, that's the memory they are going to to keep.
Right.
And I remember when we were editing one of the scenes with a soldier named with the call sign Sheva. We were editing, and it's quite a long, quiet scene where we just sit in a foxhole and we talk about small things. We talk about cigarettes. We talk about him needing to dig a deeper well in his home, and him talking about his wife and his grandson. I remember we were editing this, and it's pretty long, and so we thought, shall we make it shorter? And then we realized that when he died, and every single second of that footage that will be in a film will be a treasure for his wife, his daughter, his grandson.
How do you think this film is going to be received in Ukraine?
I am looking forward and, of course, worried about it. I want to know how it will feel. And it's very important for me to feel the audience, because Ukrainian audience is very sensitive. But that was a worry. It was my worry for 20 Days in Mariupol too. So raw, it was so painful that I was initially afraid it's going to traumatize some of the audiences. Now I know that this rawness, this being close to the pain, is also therapeutical for a lot of people who get to relive the painful moments collectively, because cinema is a collective experience. And so when people really live together these traumatic moments, it is the beginning of their treatment for trauma of their traumas. And so I hope that being able to bring Ukrainians into very, very raw perspective of soldiers who are fighting for everyone, for all of us, and for the land that we call home, being able to bring us all in the shoes of these soldiers is something we just got to do. We just have to do it.
Right.
So I am looking forward. And I remember screening 20 Days, especially in Europe. And I remember how impactful it was, but more of an emotional level for the audiences. They were shocked, they were angry, they were energized, but it was still a story for them. It was a story that was somewhere out there. 2 years later, European audiences watched 2,000 Meters to Andriivka, and I feel it. They know it's right next door. Somehow the response is so much personal. They feel that this story is much closer to them than 20 Days was. Closer, I mean, even geographically, although the distances didn't change much, but it feels that it's their story. And that's where the visuals come into power. Knowing that what you're seeing on the screen, which looks like or another planet or something that was happening to Europe 100 years ago. Right. And knowing that this is actually 12 hours or 24 hours drive makes hell of a lot of a difference.
Yeah.
And knowing that a prime ally maybe is not quite as supportive as...
We have a political shift that obviously doesn't feel like there's a sort of a psychological buffer.
It's a lot more real.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel safer, that's for sure.
Right,
Europe does not feel safer this time.
Yeah.
This time in history.
So are you going to be coming to the States when the film is opening at the end of July and into August?
For sure.
So you'll be at theaters. What do you say to an audience member who, in a Q&A, asks you, why should the U.S. continue supporting Ukraine?
Oh, good question.
That is a question with many answers. A lot of them are emotional answers, and a lot of them are the answers which I would never give in the public space.
Right. I hear you. Over a beer,
being a journalist, being a documentary filmmaker, working with topics that require objectivity, that require a certain amount of emotional distance from the story you are telling, in order to be able to tell that story objectively and truthfully, I would usually give an answer that it's much closer than you think. If you see how Russia perceives this war, Russia is at war, and I'm not just saying it from my head. If you watch Russian news made for Russians, not for Europeans, Russia is currently at war with US. It's not Ukraine anymore. Sometimes they would just skip over saying they're at war with Ukraine and just go directly, we're at war with NATO. They would keep showing the pictures of the nuclear bombs hitting London, hitting Washington. They would draw all these graphics and say, well, it takes only 24 hours for a Russian tank to drive to Berlin. And that's what the Russian society lives with for 3 years. Mm-hmm. They're used to this thought that they are at war with Europe and US, regardless of who is in power right now in US and how friendly or unfriendly they are. They are at war. And that's the only thing they can tell to their people of why they haven't been able to win this war against Ukraine. Because it's
a world war and everyone's against them. Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They advertise themselves as being the strongest army in the world, and now they cannot beat Ukraine, which is smaller.
And Russia is the ultimate victim in this case, right? Yeah.
And that's scary. The nuclear power with 120 million people, unlimited resource of soldiers willing to fight, is at war with NATO, and NATO doesn't know about it. Well, at least most of the people who are living in NATO. That's the thing I'm trying to tell when somebody asks me why US has to, or should US. That's a logical answer. Mm-hmm. And then I would give an example of, hey, imagine it wasn't Mariupol, it was LA that was completely destroyed. 50,000 Americans were killed. Imagine Washington or New York being bombed by Iranian and Russian drones and ballistic missiles, North Korean ballistic missiles every single day. And imagine that the world comes together and says, guys, just forget about it.
Just get over it. That important. Right, yeah.
Get over it. Give them LA.
Just give them the land.
It wasn't, the climate there wasn't that good anyway. So just forget about that and live. Why don't you just accept it?
Right.
And that, when you sort of just shift that perspective into anyone's country, that sounds terrible. Right. It just sounds unacceptable. Coming back to 2,000 meters, I just want people to watch that film and see that there's an agency within Ukrainian society. That when we all talk about what Ukrainians should do, what Ukraine should, what stance Ukraine should take on a political battlefield, it's always about those people who are in the trench and what they feel and what they decide.
One of the things that stuck out with me with the film was, how, and I didn't know this, how the Ukrainians referred to the Russians as motherfuckers, and which I loved, and then how when they were interacting with potential, prisoners or prisoners of war, as it were, that rage of like, why are you here? Why are you in our country? That sense of kind of even in the midst of all the chaos. That's such an interesting moment. I mean, it's sort of surprise. I mean, I understand, of course, but it's also sort of surprisingly, really unexpected in that sense that would come out so purely in that moment to each. Could you talk about that? I mean, it's just sort of, I found that interesting. Just, I mean, if you were going to put that in a script, even, it would be interesting that would leak out, even in that moment of apex.
Well, I mean, that question comes through the entire film. If you think about it, almost every soldier on a battlefield that we see is sooner or later, if he has an interaction, and almost every single battle has some sort of interaction with an enemy. And that battle of 1,000 meters that you're mentioning, that was probably the first one where we see that rage and that question, why are you here? Like, just go away.
Right.
And he says, you destroyed my house. Why the hell are you here? That strikes me as so profound. I mean, I guess that resonates with you too, because that is something that, one of the reasons why I keep making films about war. There is something to learn about human nature in these moments of bare rage and bare emotion. There is no space for theater of fake in those moments.
Right.
So we get to a very core nature of human beings, sometimes being not beautiful, but sometimes being incredibly profound and good. Another thing you keep seeing in every battle is that they keep screaming to the enemy, motherfucker, yes, but surrender.
Right.
We don't want to kill you. That's just surrender.
Yeah, give up.
Why are you not, like, why are you here? There's no explanation. Why would this Russian soldier from Irkutsk or from Dagestan or from anywhere would be in Andriivka and trying to kill Ukrainians who live there? The entire explanation that soldier from Dagestan, who we see later in the film, or that Russian soldier from Central Russia somewhere, is there to fight NATO in Andriivka is absurd.
It's absurd.
And that what comes through when the soldiers start asking these questions. In the next scene, when they are in Andriivka and they take prisoner of war, one of the officers, the young boy, he's 19 years old, he asks this prisoner of war, do you think I am at my 19 years being here and just fighting you is what I want to do? Of course not. We know he's here because he defends his home.
Right. Because he has to. Right.
And then he's asking the Russian soldier, why are you here? And the Russian says, I don't know. I mean, that's not the scripted moment. That's the thing about documentary.
I love that. I just love that.
They are not even aware that they're being filmed. It's a very natural interaction. And that Russian soldier says, I don't know.
There's just so much humanity in these scenarios, in these war moments, where you really get such a picture of what the human animal is. Really, you know, it's incredible, and you captured it so. You just wrap your arms around it and just look it right in the eyes, and it's so powerful. It's magnificent, really.
To be frank, I wouldn't want to be doing films about war. I don't like war. I don't want to do it.
Right.
But that's just what's necessary now. That's what's important.
No, I get it.
But I would much prefer to do different kind of films.
Films about small furry animals. Sure, of course, absolutely. I mean, I get it. But I mean, I really...
National Geographic, if you hear me.
That's right.
Cheetahs and pandas and penguins. Oh my God, penguins!
Penguins would be fun, right? Yeah.
Thank you for doing what you are doing.
Yeah,
because it is important, and
massive public service.
It's something obviously for the cause of Ukraine, but it's also teaching us something about the human character. I think it's important.
I also think there's an opportunity for cinema here, for documentary cinema, also to grow and to find something new.
Yeah.
When we started doing 20 days and then we proceeded to do 2,000 meters to Andriivka, we always start from the point of what can we do that hasn't been done in documentary films? How can we push the medium to a level that has never been pushed to? World is changing, the technology is changing, the storytelling is the whole information fields are changing. So how do we push the medium to the place that the audience has never been yet? And 2,000 meters is the attempt to do it.
And some of that's technological in the sense that you have camera equipment and, you know, opportunities that, you know, William Wyler never had when he was filming Memphis Belle, or, you know, who knows. But I think, you're also responding to a media environment that at some level requires a change to the form to get to engage with people and to reach them emotionally and also to teach them. And both of those things are necessary for documentary. So thank you for advancing the form. It's not just a cause. It is. There's something else going on.
I'm already shooting my next film, so I'll try to.
It sounds that way, but I get a sense that I'm not allowed to ask what the subject is. So, but we won't go.
I'm not gonna tell you anyway.
Okay,
right. Well, it sounds like you're in the room where it happened.
Let's just say my biggest hope that this film I'm working on will be about the end of this war.
Oh, that would be. Halavai. The film is 2,000 meters to Andriivka. It's directed by Mislav Chernov, follow-up to his Academy Award-winning film 20 Days in Mariupol. It's going to be going into movie theaters across the United States starting in July and through August. Mislav will be coming to the United States to appear at certain theaters, answering Q&A. So, it is a film. Look, it's going to be on PBS at some point. If that's where you find it, that's where you find it. But if you have an opportunity to see it in a movie theater, please go. Support your local art house and learn something about what's going on both in Ukraine, the resolve of the country in their current fight, and also what's going on with the documentary form and how it's evolving and changing in response to things. Mislav, thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you. It was a great conversation.
Yeah, really wonderful.
And thank you to everyone out there for joining us. Please like, please subscribe, please share this to make sure that more and more people find out about this film, 20,000 Meters to Andriivka.
Thank you again. Thank you. And I wish you the very best with your premiere in Ukraine. I really hold a thought for you. It's going to be a powerful thing.
Slava Ukraine.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Heroям слава.
Yeah.
Our show was produced by Raphael Sparge with on-site producer Norrin Dickerson. Supervising producers are Thomas Cassetta and Miles McCreary. Our show was edited by Gabriel Emley and sound mixed by Thomas Cassetta. Our musical theme was composed by Isabel Engman and Gerardo Garcia Jr. Marketing by Gabriel Emley. Show graphics by Jenna DeAngelis. Additional marketing and web design by Stephanie Peters. Filmed at the historic Laemmle Royal Theater in Los Angeles, California. See you next time on Inside the Arthouse. If you liked today's show, please consider subscribing to our channel to learn more on Inside the Arthouse.